From the Synthetic Lens, I'm David Carver. Today's story is about Anthropic, Claude Code, and a developer conference in San Francisco that did something slightly unusual. It did not center on a new model. No grand reveal of Claude 5, no benchmark fireworks, no cinematic promise that the model had crossed some clean line into the future. Instead, Code with Claude 2026 was about something more practical and maybe more revealing. Anthropic is building the operating layer around agentic software work. Marcus Chen joins me first. Marcus, this was not a normal new model event. What was Anthropic really announcing?
Anthropic is trying to turn Claude from a coding assistant into a managed software workforce platform. And I don't mean that in the breathless, your job is gone tomorrow sense. I mean the architecture is changing. At the event, Anthropic organized the day around 3 tracks: Research, Claude Platform, and Claude Code. The official San Francisco agenda had sessions on Claude Code at scale, long horizon tasks, multi-repo work, parallel agents, proactive workflows, and AI-native engineering organizations. That framing matters. This was not just write better code in the terminal. It was how do teams run Claude Code like infrastructure.
And the official event page says Code with Claude is a developer conference built around hands-on workshops, live demos of new capabilities, and conversations with the teams behind Claude. San Francisco was May 6th. London and Tokyo follow later. But Simon Willison's live blog captured the telling line from the keynote. No new model today. Today is about how we are making our products work better for you.
Right. And that line is the thesis. The model is still central, obviously, but Anthropic is making the wrapper around the model much more sophisticated. Start with Claude Managed Agents. The docs describe it as a pre-built configurable agent harness running in managed infrastructure. You define the agent, its model, prompt, tools, MCC servers, skills, and environment. Then Anthropic runs the session in cloud infrastructure where Cloud can read files, run shell commands, browse the web, execute code, and stream events back. That is a different product category from a chatbot.
It's closer to a remote employee with a container.
A remote employee with a container, a transcript, a tool belt, and now, apparently, colleagues. The multi-agent sessions docs say a coordinator agent can delegate to other agents, each with its own isolated session thread and conversation history. They can share the same file system and container, but not the same context. Anthropic highlights 3 patterns: parallelization, specialization, and escalation. So a coordinator could assign one agent to search code, another to review security, another to write tests, and then synthesize.
Which sounds very close to what software teams are already doing informally with multiple agents, multiple terminals, and a lot of prayer.
Exactly. Anthropic is productizing the pattern. Then there are outcomes. This is one of the more important pieces because it addresses the how do we know the agent did the work problem. The docs say an outcome turns a session from conversation into work. You define what the end result should look like and how to measure quality. The harness provisions a separate grader agent in a fresh context window to evaluate the artifact against a rubric. If it fails criteria, the grader reports gaps, and the working agent iterates. That is Anthropic saying agentic coding needs QA baked into the loop.
Not just, Claude, build me this. More like, Claude, build this. And here is the independent rubric by which another Claude will judge you.
Yes, and that distinction matters. Long-running agents accumulate context. They can become overcommitted to their own plan. A separate grader in a fresh context is not perfect, but it is a real architectural answer to self-review drift. Then comes the feature with the most science fiction meme, dreams.
We are legally obligated to slow down when a company says it's agent's dream.
Please do. Dreams are a research preview. The docs say a dream reads an existing memory store and optionally up to 100 past sessions, then produces a new output memory store. The stated goal is to merge duplicates,
replace stale or contradicted entries with newer values, and surface new insights. The input store is never modified, so a human can inspect the output and discard it. That's important. This is not the model changing its own weights overnight. It is memory curation, plain text or structured memory getting reorganized so future sessions can use it better.
VentureBeat reported that Anthropic staff described dreams as agents, writing better notes for their future selves, and emphasized that it does not modify model weights.
That's the sane interpretation. Dreaming is a branding layer over an auditable memory maintenance job. But it's still significant. Anyone who has run coding agents for real work knows the failure mode. The agent learns something useful in one session, then forgets it in the next. Or worse, it preserves stale notes that become landmines. Dreams are Anthropic's answer to the continuity problem.
And then there are routines.
Routines are where Claude Code starts looking like cron with judgment. The docs describe a routine as a saved Claude Code configuration. A prompt, repositories, connectors, and triggers. It can run on a schedule, from an API call, or in response to GitHub events on Anthropic Managed Infrastructure. Anthropic gives examples like backlog maintenance, alert triage, bespoke code review, deploy verification, docs drift, and library porting.
So the stack is bigger than one coding tool. Managed cloud agents, multi-agent delegation, outcome rubrics, dreams for memory consolidation, routines for schedules and triggers, code review for pull requests, security review for vulnerabilities, and an agent SDK for developers who want to build their own products on top.
Exactly. The SDK matters because it exposes Claude Code's loop, file reading, shell commands, search, editing, context management, to Python and TypeScript. Anthropic renamed the Claude Code SDK to the Claude Agent SDK, which is a pretty clear signal about where they think the category is going. The unit is no longer a coding chat. The unit is an agent loop you can embed.
Host Ingrid Halvorsen joins us now. Ingrid, every agent story eventually becomes an infrastructure story. What did Anthropic announce on compute?
A lot. Anthropic's official post on May 6th says the company has agreed to a partnership with SpaceX that will substantially increase compute capacity. The post says this, combined with other compute deals, allows Anthropic to increase usage limits for Claude Code and the Claude API. The immediate changes are threefold. First, Anthropic says it is doubling Claude Code's 5-hour rate limits for Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise plans. Second, it is removing the peak hours limit reduction on Claude Code for Pro and Max accounts. Third, it is raising API rate limits considerably for Claude Opus models.
The consumer version of that is fewer you hit the wall messages for heavy Claude Code users.
Correct, but the strategic version is more interesting. According to Anthropic's post, the SpaceX agreement gives the company access to all of the compute capacity at SpaceX's Colossus 1 data center, more than 300 megawatts of new capacity, and over 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs within the month. The same official post says Anthropic has expressed interest in partnering with SpaceX on multiple gigawatts of orbital AI compute capacity. That last part should be treated carefully. Interest is not infrastructure. It is not a deployed orbital data center, but it tells you how large the compute imagination has become.
Ars Technica covered the same deal from the conference floor and noted that Dario Amodei said on stage the deal was intended to increase usage limits for Pro and Max subscribers.
Yes, and Ars also connected it to the demand problem. Anthropic has seen very heavy demand for Claude Code. The official story is that capacity increases allow them to relax limits. The deeper story is that agentic coding changes the shape of compute demand. A chatbot turn is one thing. A coding agent running for hours, reading files, editing code, spawning sub-agents, checking tests, reviewing pull requests, and writing memories is another thing entirely. It is not just more tokens, it is longer sessions, more tool calls, more parallelism, and more expensive models used as advisors or graders.
Host Simon Willison's live blog notes Anthropic saying API volume was up 17 times year over year. VentureBeat's coverage goes further. reporting that Dario Amagede described 80 times annualized growth in revenue and usage in the first quarter of 2026, compared with a 10 times plan and nearly 70 times API volume growth year over year.
Those VentureBeat numbers should be attributed to VentureBeat's reporting, but if even directionally true, they explain the urgency. Companies used to plan for a curve. Agentic coding appears to have turned that curve into a wall. And this is why the SpaceX partnership is not a side note. It is part of the product announcement. If Anthropic wants developers to treat Claude Code as an async engineering layer, it has to make the product reliable under heavy use. A developer cannot schedule a routine, run a multi-agent workflow, or trust a Claude Code review system if the service is constantly rationing capacity at the worst time.
There was also a strange political and environmental twist here.
There is. Ars noted the oddity of Anthropic partnering with SpaceX after Elon Musk had publicly criticized Anthropic. Ars also noted SpaceX and Colossus in the context of Memphis data center concerns and broader questions about power, land, cooling, and environmental cost. Simon Willison also flagged the Memphis environmental record in his live blog. So the story has tension. Anthropic is positioning itself as careful, safety-minded, and enterprise-ready, while also making the same giant compute bets as everyone else in frontier AI. The clean line is that agentic coding needs infrastructure. The uncomfortable line is that this infrastructure has social, political, and environmental externality.
Stan Rogers joins us now. Stan, let's talk about what this means inside software teams.
It means the phrase AI pair programmer is already too small. That phrase made sense when the tool sat next to you and helped auto-complete code. It made less sense when Claude Code started editing across a repo. It makes even less sense when the tool can run routines from the cloud, review PRs, watch CI, fix failures, and split work across agents. We are moving from pair programming to process automation.
That sounds less magical and more bureaucratic.
Most real productivity revolutions eventually become bureaucracy with better tools. Look at what Anthropic is packaging. Routines can run scheduled or event-triggered workflows. Code review can analyze pull requests with a fleet of specialized agents, tag findings by severity, and post inline comments. Security review checks for SQL injection, XSS, authentication flaws, insecure data handling, and dependency problems. Outcomes define success rubrics. Dreams clean up memory stores. Multi-agent orchestration splits the work. That is a whole development process trying to become software.
Simon Willison's live blog quotes Anthropic talking about async coding, routines as higher-order prompts, and developers waking up to pull requests ready to merge.
And that is the promise. You describe a recurring job once, then a cloud agent runs it every night, or on every PR, or when your monitoring system fires. But there is a governance problem here. Who owns the PR an agent opens? Who reviews the review agent? Who decides whether a dream memory is correct? Who audits a routine that has been quietly editing docs every week? Who pays when a multi-agent workflow burns through a rate limit or pushes a bad fix?
This is where the outcomes feature feels revealing. Anthropic is not just saying agents can do more, it is saying agents need rubrics.
Exactly. The rubric is the management layer. For a human team, you can say ship the feature, but it needs tests, docs, no security regressions, and it must fit our design system. The agent version needs that encoded. Outcomes are a way of turning management judgment into machine-checkable criteria. The upside is obvious. More work can run in parallel. Junior developers can move faster. Senior engineers can encode standards into repeatable loops. Managers who have been away from code can contribute again through higher-level prompts and review. The downside is equally obvious. Bad rubrics produce bad automation. A tool that can open PRs at 2 in the morning can also create noise at 2 in the morning. Automated reviews can miss context. Security reviews can catch real issues, but they do not replace human threat models.
So the takeaway is not the agent replaces the team.
No. The better takeaway is the team becomes partly programmable, and that's a much bigger organizational change.
Marcus, does that change how we should judge these products, not by demo quality, but by process quality?
I think so. The question becomes less, can the agent solve this one task? And more, can the system notice when it failed, preserve the right lesson,
and route the next attempt better. That is a higher bar than a flashy demo. It is also a more useful one.
Before we close, I want to come back to dreams because it is the phrase people will remember. Is this an agent learning from mistakes?
In the narrow sense, yes. In the sci-fi sense, no. The docs are clear that dreams produce a new memory store from an old one and past sessions. VentureBeat's interview material emphasizes that the model weights do not change. The output is inspectable. So if an agent repeatedly discovers that a repo requires a special build command, or that a test harness fails unless a service is running, a dream could consolidate that into a cleaner playbook for the future. That is genuinely useful. But it also means the quality of the dream depends on the quality of the transcripts and the judgment used to summarize them. If the past sessions contain bad assumptions, the dream could preserve them unless the process is careful.
In other words, even machine memory needs an editor.
Always.
Host, Ingrid, last infrastructure thought?
The rate limit announcement is easy to underestimate. For heavy Claude Code users, limits are not an annoyance. They shape workflow design. If the 5-hour window doubles and peak hour reductions disappear for Pro and Max, users will attempt more ambitious workflows. That creates a feedback loop. More capacity enables more agentic behavior. More agentic behavior creates more demand for capacity. Anthropic is betting it can climb that spiral faster than competitors.
Stan, last organizational thought.
The companies that benefit most will not be the ones that simply turn every feature on. They will be the ones that write better rubrics, build better evals, keep human review in the right places, and treat agent memory as an artifact to audit, not a mystical force to trust.
That is the real story from Code with Claude. Anthropic did not need a new model announcement to make the week important. Instead, it showed the outline of a software factory built around agents, cloud sessions, routines, review loops, outcome rubrics, multi-agent delegation, memory consolidation, and enough new compute to keep the machine running longer. The phrase AI coding assistant now feels quaint. What Anthropic is building is closer to an operating system for agentic engineering. And like every operating system, the hard questions are not only what it can run, they are who controls it, who observes it, who pays for it, and who is responsible when it acts. For the Synthetic Lens, I'm David Carver. We'll keep watching.